very honored to have David Schmidt with us. And thank you, sir, for coming to our Zoominar.
Yeah, absolutely, Roy. You know, you and I go back a long time, and thank you so much for inviting me on. And it is great to see so many of our LifeWave family members. Alloy, it's been a long time. Nice to see you. Rick, great to see you.
Thank you.
Jane and Larry and Nikki and Therese, great to see everybody. Don't want to leave anybody.
Yes, so today David had told me that we can ask any question that we have in mind. So I'm going to start to ask a question to you, David, and then I will let everybody ask any other question that they might have. All right, Chief. So David,
wherever you want to start, Roy.
All right. When I went to anywhere around the world, every time I come across with some people who has negative ion on their body, I remember one time I was in San Diego. We did a presentation. There's like maybe 25 people or so. I bet maybe 7, 8 people. And every single one of them doesn't even feel the pain drop. I was like, how come? And then later on, I found out that all of them are NEFUL distributors, which is the negative ion things. And then I said, well, let's try. If anybody want to feel the amazingness of our technology, take off your negative ion, and then you can feel it. And every single one of them took off everything, and they start feeling the effect of the patches. And the reason they joined NEFUL, this is a bunch of old senior citizens that have kind of pain. And the reason they join is because they want to get rid of the pain, and we were able to get rid of their pain. So my question to you is, does negative ion have such an impact to our, when we wear the patches to our body?
It's an interesting question, and some of this I'm going to have to speculate based on studies that we've done on our own products. One thing that's an interesting anecdote here is that when I went back for my master's in biology, my principal study that I did in the research lab was on negative air ions. Of course, you're talking about clothing that imparts a negative charge to the body. And the phenomena that I was looking at were what were the potential health benefits of breathing in negative air ions. So, what's important about this is that the body always works in a state of balance. You're a martial artist, and I know you're very, very familiar with the concept that you have to have balance between the yin and yang and the positive and negative in the body. Yeah. And we see this both on the micro level and on the macro level. So for example, you have the electrical charge across the cell membrane, and there's a positive charge, let's say on the outside, and a negative charge on the inside, and those charges stay in balance. The electrolytes that are holding those charges, potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, chlorine, they're all in balance, and that's how we keep healthy cells. So if you're going to impart just one specific electrical charge to the body, you're going to end up in trouble. I know you know this as an engineer. If you try to run electricity through a circuit, you've got a positive end and you've got a negative end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really the same in the human body. And with the patches, you're an expert on patching people for pain relief. I'm sure there's some things you could probably teach me, after all these years. But the critical part about this is that when someone has pain, it is a disruption in the flow of energy through the body. And we can describe this either in Eastern terms or in Western terms, but it's all the same phenomena. In Western terms, we might say that the impedance of the tissue has changed. And so when we get an injury, let's say someone injured their knee, and you're going to get inflammation, and this extra fluid is going to create an imbalance in the electrolytes. And this could cause the tissue conductivity to go either high or low. And this is going to change the resistance of the tissue, and therefore electrical signaling can't get through it, and the brain interprets this as pain. So when we want to restore the flow of energy, it's about rebalancing those positive and negative charges. So we always talk about put the tan negative patch on the point of pain, and then put the white positive patch, 3 inches away or parallel to it, or what have you. And it's that balance between the positive and the negative that restores the flow of energy and reduces the pain. So I would speculate, and I don't want to knock their product, because they may have done clinical studies and shown that there's some health benefits to it. But when it comes to pain relief, you may impart just a negative charge to tissue, and you could actually be making it worse, because in some cases, you need that flow of energy, you need the positive charge to complete the circuit.
Wow, that was a very long answer, David.
Yeah. Plus, the other side to it is where our technology really shines, is that we can use a product like the glutathione patch to elevate glutathione to reduce inflammation, or with Eon, or with X39 to activate and mobilize the stem cells. We have a number of ways to manage inflammation that other products don't have. So that gives us a very significant advantage.
I have another question before I let anybody ask question is, I went for a car wash at one point in time, and then in the car wash area, there's somebody who was selling CBD oil, okay? And then there are 2 Filipino lady that was mad to the guy who was selling the CBD stuff. And I mean, they're really mad because they're spending $300 and they could not get rid of their pain. So I do not know this guy in the beginning. So I said, well, I can help these 2 ladies to get rid of their pain. And then the gentleman asked, how are you going to get rid of it? With these patches. So I guess he's curious too. And he said, I want to see that. I want to see that. I said, okay, no problem. So as you know, I always carry my little backpack with my patches all over me. And I did that. And I literally get rid of the pain of the 2 lady. And the 2 ladies like, how could that be? So make long story short, she want to join. So I recruit the guy that's selling the CBD stuff. And then there was more stuff going on after that, right? So my question is, somewhere along the line, how many emails I got from LIFEWAVE alone, right? It says like, correct me if I'm wrong, our technology works about 100 times better than morphine. Is that so?
Oh, I wouldn't make that claim.
Okay, I'm not making claims.
We haven't done a study comparing the patches to morphine. What you may be thinking of is Nirvana. And when Nirvana first came out, what we talked about was that beta endorphins, which are naturally produced in the body, and it's what Nirvana elevates, are about 30 times more powerful than morphine. So that may be what you're thinking of. The problem with beta endorphins is that they have a very, very short half-life. So let's take an example. Someone's in a car accident, and they get banged up pretty bad, and they say, well, I feel fine, I don't feel any pain at all. And then an hour later, they're in extreme pain. Well, when the body goes through extreme trauma, the brain will release beta endorphins as a way of coping with the trauma and helping us deal with that emergency, suppressing the pain. But then, eventually, like I said, within an hour, it wears off and we start to feel the effects. But the beta endorphins, they get us through that trauma. The thing about Nirvana is that the pills and the combination of the patch will upregulate dopamine and beta endorphins and help keep the beta endorphins elevated. So it takes a little bit of time for that to kick in, a few weeks. But Nirvana is actually a very powerful way of managing pain. So, we have IceWave, glutathione, Eon, X39, now as it turns out, X49.
Wow.
We have all these different tools for helping people manage pain. Since you're a pain management specialist, I'm going to tell you something you may not know
Okay.
because I just found it from a medical doctor. And it was on a study that was showing that when people were deficient in copper, it actually made them more sensitive to pain. So we always promote that people get enough copper in their diet, eat liver or chocolate or wheatgrass or take a copper supplement. But from the point of view of pain management, when people have copper deficiencies, it affects a wide range of things in the body. But one of the things is that it makes it more difficult for people to deal with and cope with pain. So if people are dealing with chronic pain, taking a copper supplement is definitely going to help them.
I remember your drink before. What was the name of it again? What is the drink that we used to have, David?
Well, we had a few. Are you talking about Theta 1?
Theta 1, right. Does it have copper in it?
That formula didn't. We have been requested. I have to be careful what I say. We have been requested to develop a nutritional supplement. So I think it would make sense if we did that, we would include copper, in the supplement.
I was in Mexico. I think I was with not Lorenzo, Oscar at one point in time. I patched this guy like almost $100 worth, and he doesn't feel anything. And then I let him drink 2 of the Theta 1. Rick was there with me, I think. And then all the pain is gone. I was like, huh. So I heard something that you said in previously. I applied and it works. I love it.
Well, so that was a couple of things, right? So Theta 1 had potassium in it. And we find, and this is something that you see in acupuncture too, is that when people have a deficiency of electrolytes, especially potassium and magnesium, it's going to be more difficult for them to get pain relief because those electrolytes are necessary for conduction of the flow of bioelectrical energy through the body. And that, of course, is what's going to manage pain, ultimately, is that signaling. The other thing about Theta 1 is that it elevated nitric oxide, and it's very well known now that nitric oxide can reduce the impact of pain. Of course, nitric oxide has a lot of benefits. Most of them are associated with cardiovascular health, but nitric oxide is great for improving cognition, of course, sexual health and health of the heart. So and also with sports performance. So maybe we'll do something like that again.
I'd like to ask this one, David, from Naomi. I think this is a very good question, important question. She asked, how would a person know if attenuations was happening to them?
That's an interesting question, actually. Someone might not know. So in other words, if someone had worn the patch and they had left it on the body too long, how would you know if they were responding or not? It would be difficult to tell unless you had equipment. So in our labs, and it wouldn't be, like a traditional blood or urine test, it would be a bioelectrical test. So in my lab, 2 pieces of equipment that we have that I use regularly are a biopulsar and a Menla scan. And, the advantage to this is that you can connect yourself to the device, and within seconds of placing the patch on the body, you can begin to see a change in the flow of energy through the tissue. So it's a really excellent way of knowing when I'm developing new patches, does it produce an effect or not? But for someone that did not have access to any type of equipment for measuring bioelectrical flow through the body, like EMOS would be something inexpensive that measures energy in the meridians, you really wouldn't be able to tell. You'd have to measure it.
So in that case, how long do you suggest this person stop using the patches before they get back on, let's say, X39?
Yeah.
Is a day sufficient?
I think a day is okay. Yeah. Now there could be some other factors at play, but if they thought they weren't responding to X39, or if they had left it on for 24 hours, I'd say wait a day and then, go back, put it on in the morning, and then take it off at night.
Okay, I'm not sure whether you can answer this, David. A lot of questions for menopause, thyroid, Hashimoto, gaining, and hot flashes. How many patches and how long? Thanks.
I'm going to say, it this way. First, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't give medical advice, and any recommendations that I make should be taken to a person's healthcare practitioner so they can evaluate what would be best for that individual. When looking at any problems with the thyroid, there's a few important things to investigate. One thing that is overlooked is heavy metal poisoning. So it is common for soft tissue like the thymus, the thyroid, and the liver to accumulate mercury. Now, mercury, of course, is a metal, and it is liquid at room temperature. And being a metal, it can interfere with the electrical signaling of the body. So often when people have thyroid problems or immune problems, the issue is really that they have heavy metal poisoning. So I'd really recommend for everybody to be on a regular program of detoxification, reevaluate the food that you're eating, drink enough water, have enough fiber in your diet, get plenty of rest, and get a source of cysteine in your diet. Like, eggs is a great source of cysteine, or milk. If you have heavy metal poisoning, you should get a glutathione drip from a doctor. And that's going to be one of the fastest ways to get the heavy metals out of the body. Of course, we have a glutathione patch, and very early on, back in 2005, when this was being developed, we found that we could use it to pull heavy metals like mercury out of the body. But of course, we're not claiming it's treating any type of conditions. The other thing is, of course, a person should have their iodine levels looked at. It is very common, especially in the United States, not so much in Japan, where they eat a lot of vegetables from the ocean, but in the US, iodine deficiencies are extremely common. Fortunately, there are natural sources of iodine like kelp. People could take 400, 800 micrograms per day, and that would be safe. In Japan, they get about 12 milligrams of iodine in their diet. And what's interesting is the incidence of viral infections in Japan is way, way less than it is here in the United States. They say 1 out of every 10,000 people in Japan get a viral infection. Well, it's because they get so much iodine in their diet, and iodine is very, very powerful antiviral. So with anything with the thyroid, I'd be speaking to my doctor about iodine levels. The other, with what would be normal in menopause is a woman would start to get an increased level of thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH. And the reason for this is that the T3 and the T4 levels are dropping. So the TSH goes up because there's not enough T3 and T4. So for women going through menopause, very common herbs for reducing the symptoms would be things like Vitex or chasteberry and Dong Quai. Women have successfully used our carnosine patch for reducing the symptoms of menopause, although we've never done a study with it. But the carnosine patch is applied to the inside of the left ankle on the spleen 6 acupuncture point. So of course you find that by going 4 finger widths above the ankle bone on the inside of the ankle. That point's very tender, and placing a carnosine patch on the left ankle there can reduce the symptoms of menopause. So if I were a woman and, we're dealing, with these issues, I would talk to my doctor about a holistic program of looking at supplementing with things like magnesium, iodine, getting a glutathione IV drip, maybe using some herbs and approaching it that way. And the patches can help to reduce the symptoms. And of course, X39 is going to help, but indirectly.
Wow. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. Somebody asked me this, David. It's kind of weird.
Oh, all right. Well, I don't mind. We're in the world of weird here sometimes. So that's totally okay. And it's all a Friday night, so
if somebody is licking a copper wire, is that okay or not?
If they're licking a copper wire?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. It wouldn't be my preference. I'd rather get my copper from eating lobster personally.
I like that too.
You would too, right? Copper bracelets. Let's talk about this for a second. It used to be thought that this was just a myth, or what they would call an old wives' tale, that wearing a copper bracelet gets rid of pain. It actually turns out to be true, and it's a transdermal mechanism. Just go and look at the book by Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw called Life Extension from the 1970s, and they talk about this. So in other words, you wear the copper bracelet, and the metallic copper diffuses through the skin like a transdermal patch, and the copper gets into the blood, and the increase in copper is going to reduce pain. So there is, of course, in most people, a decrease in copper as we age, and of course, a decrease in copper peptide, GHKCU. Along with that, of course, comes a decrease in stem cell activity. So if a person wants to get more copper in their diet and they don't want to take a copper supplement, hypothetically, they could wear a copper bracelet and get some copper into their body that way. In ancient Rome, they used to put water in copper vessels and then drink that water, because they found out that the metallic copper got into the water, you drank it, and then it had a health benefit. So you can find these, copper jars or bowls going back several thousand years.
Wow. All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Now, this is going to be very, very interesting. What patch actually I can use to detox my blood from vaccination COVID, because I got swollen on my face, itches on my body, and I got rashes too. Still suffering now. Wow.
Okay. So, we could do an entire webinar on this. And actually, I've done a few webinars on COVID, and I've learned a few things since then. I'm not going to make any claims about the patches treating COVID, but if we want to look at recovery, there's a few things that people can do. First thing is, I feel that everyone should be on a supplement of copper, iodine, and N-acetylcysteine. It's very well known at this point that glutathione is going to help to manage inflammation and reduce the severity of COVID-19. I'm not talking about our glutathione patch. I'm talking about studies that were done with using N-acetylcysteine, a common amino acid that is necessary for formation of glutathione. So glutathione is a tripeptide. It's made of 3 amino acids, and the one we need to get in our diet is cysteine, and a bioavailable form of cysteine is NAC, and it's been around for 53, 54 years, something like that. And the FDA made a move to take it off the market 6 weeks after the study came out that NAC was an effective treatment for COVID-19. Anyway, I don't want to get distracted by that. But everyone should be on an NAC supplement, 600 milligrams twice a day, and that's going to help to facilitate detoxification. As a prophylactic, I would definitely recommend copper and iodine. Iodine is going to be highly antiviral. Copper, highly antiviral. Glutathione is antiviral. And these are going to help to prevent reinfection or any residual virus that might be in the body. Now, two things that I learned very recently, and this was with family members that got COVID, was, and this was a real surprise, and it was something that I thought of because in these cases, people were hypoxic. So in other words, they developed what I'd say, a non-severe strain of COVID-19. This was one of the new strains that's not life-threatening, but, takes you off your feet. And one of the symptoms is hypoxia. So you connect an oximeter and you find the blood oxygen levels decrease. And of course, the net impact of this is that it creates a lot of fatigue. So what do you do about that? Well, what we tried was desiccated liver and chlorophyll. And the reasons for this is that chlorophyll is going to help not only with detoxification, it's a good source of copper, but it also supports oxygenation of the tissues. And the liver, this was a desiccated liver supplement, 6 grams a day, divided into 2-3 gram doses. And the advantage of this is that, not only is liver a good source of copper and iron, but it also contains an enzyme called P450. Now, I know my buddy Rick DeLuca is on the line, and Rick was a bodybuilder, a very good one back in the day. And Rick, you're going to remember, like me, that the bodybuilders from the 50s, 60s, and 70s all took liver supplements. And you may remember, some of the guys like Vince Gironda was a very strong promoter. He had a gym, Vince's gym in LA, and he promoted liver. Well, as it turns out, liver has growth factors in it. The organ is the most regenerative organ in the body, but the P450 enzyme, which you only find in liver, can detoxify the body and improve stamina and oxygenate the tissue. So anyway, we tried these things and it was remarkable. Within hours, they regained their strength and stamina, were back on their feet and felt like themselves again. So again, I'm not a medical doctor, so they'd have to talk to their healthcare practitioner, but desiccated liver and chlorophyll, in my experience, do a really great job at helping people to recover from COVID-19. So, there are a whole host of things, copper, iodine, NAC, that can help to reduce, they act as a prophylactic at protecting people from viral infections. Very high doses of vitamin D are also extraordinarily effective. And, these natural measures may help save people's lives. So it's things that people should be doing today.
Amen.
Okay.
As far as the patches go, I would be using X39, Eon, and glutathione, maybe X39 and glutathione during the day, and then Eon at night. And those patches specifically are going to help to manage the inflammatory process. We can get into a lot of detail on this. If people lose their sense of taste, this is associated with neurological damage in the brain. And then, yet there's other antioxidants and anti-inflammatories like curcumin, PQQ, alpha lipoic acid that people can take. to reverse the neurological damage and recover their sense of smell and sense of taste. So if people have suffered with that as a result of having COVID-19, just know that there's these natural compounds that can really help. One last one I'll mention is DMSO. And DMSO is extremely powerful. It's probably best known as a treatment for arthritis and cancer. And the FDA has really done a great job at suppressing all the information out there on DMSO. You should only take it out of a glass container because it will absorb things. It'll go right through the skin if you apply it to the skin, and this is why people use it for arthritic joints. They apply it topically. But the amount of DMSO that you take is roughly 2 tablespoons per week. DMSO is a blood thinner, and if people have low blood pressure, they probably shouldn't take it. But for people that have enlarged prostate, high PSA, the combination of curcumin, DMSO, extremely powerful. And for COVID, people will feel better within an hour after just taking a tablespoon of DMSO.
All right.
But I would really precaution people, speak to their doctor first, just to make sure that it's okay for them.
Okay, good. I think this one you already answered about the attenuation. Okay, David, the next question would be, would stacking 2 different patches on the same point interfere with each other?
Oh, I love Dr. Dennis Lobstein. I think he was the one that created the stacking protocol. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, clinically, Dr. Lobstein has used this successfully. And, there's nothing like real world experience. But the position I have to take with it is that we haven't done a clinical study to show that that method is either good or not good. So I'm totally neutral on the subject. If people want to stack one patch on top of the other and stimulate the same point, they can do it, but the company can't recommend it only because we don't have a clinical study to say, yeah, we tested that and it works that way.
When will you create a patch that stops headache and migraine pain? It tracks like X39 stops body ache and pain. I find it's only 50% of the time it works.
Yeah,
you already did.
So, yeah, so with migraines, yeah, we had a product a number of years ago, you're going to remember, which was Theta Mind. And it actually was recognized as a drug in Europe where we couldn't sell it there. And the price was very expensive to manufacture it and sell it. So, we eventually dropped it. But actually, Theta Mind would get rid of a migraine headache almost immediately. So let me talk about this just for a moment, because obviously migraine headaches are debilitating and people shouldn't suffer with them. The patches like IceWave, Eon, X39 are definitely going to help with a headache, but a lot of this has to do with muscle tension and blood flow. And there's a few things that people that suffer from this can do to reduce the severity. The first thing is going to be with magnesium. Now, good forms of magnesium are going to be magnesium taurate, magnesium glycinate, magnesium citrate is common and it's readily available. And if you were to talk to a medical doctor that's a clinical nutritionist, I've talked to many of them, they'll recommend as much as 800 milligrams a day of magnesium. Now that's way on the outside. For most people, 200, 400 milligrams of magnesium a day is okay. Just bear in mind, you don't want to take 400 milligrams all at once because it will give you diarrhea. Magnesium tends to loosen the bowels. So, but it is very, very common for people that have migraine headaches to have magnesium deficiencies, and magnesium is a muscle relaxant. So I would strongly recommend that people go on a magnesium supplement. Also, it takes months to get the magnesium levels back to normal. And if you want to boost magnesium levels very quickly, then you apply a topical gel. So there is a magnesium gel that you can apply to the skin, and magnesium levels will go up within about 30 days as opposed to 6 to 9 months. I'd also take the oral version of magnesium as well. The thing that we found in Theta Mind that was reducing the migraines was phosphatidylserine. So serine is an amino acid, and there's a specific form called phosphatidylserine that is used to improve cognition. It improves overall memory and focus, and that's why it was in that product. But as it turns out, it also tends to relax the body. And so with people that have migraines, they would benefit from that. So you can get phosphatidylserine, over the counter at a nutritional store. And that would be something for people to explore. The last thing, because this is also a blood flow issue, person would want to look at their overall cardiovascular health. And, time doesn't allow us. Again, we get to do an entire webinar on this, but there are natural products for improving cardiovascular health. If you have arterial blockages, accumulation of arterial plaque, all of these things can be resolved with natural supplements. But, just as a general comment for improving blood flow, the fastest way to do it is by elevating nitric oxide. That's kind of a Band-Aid, because you really want to improve the health of the endothelial lining, and that requires, some different things. But for elevating nitric oxide, if you want to do it with your diet, by far the best way to do it is with beets. And beets contain nitrites. Now, not often we think of nitrites as being something bad, right? So like things like salami, right, are preserved with nitrites. And if you have too much processed food, you get too much nitrites, and that can cause cancer. But if you take a small amount of nitrites, I think the dose is maybe about 15 milligrams or so, it will elevate, it'll convert directly over into the nitric oxide. So if you're taking, let's say, 500 milligrams of vitamin C along with sodium nitrite, it'll elevate nitric oxide levels, and you can buffer some of the, some of the not so good effects from it. The classical way of elevating nitric oxide is with amino acids like citrulline and arginine. In the Theta 1 product, we did it with arginine. Citrulline might be a little bit better because it bypasses the arginase that would degrade the arginine and inhibit nitric oxide formation. So, kind of the bottom line is there's a number of supplements that will effectively elevate nitric oxide. You could do it with your diet by using things like beets, but nitric oxide it's a vasodilator. It'll improve blood flow, and it will reduce the severity of those migraines and reduce the incidence of them.
Can our patch help with trigeminal neural? Is a nerve pain in one side of the face from forehead to the cheek. When eating, talking, rubbing the face, and sleeping, the affected area can cause intense, excruciating pain.
So again, we can't make any claims that our products are going to treat a medical condition. There is a doctor in LifeWave that I know that had this condition and treated it with the patches, but that is purely anecdotal. And I don't know completely the protocol that she used. I think what I would say is there are a number of medical doctors like Dr. Karen Khan who are in our community that would have the necessary experience for doing this on an individual basis. So I think it would be good for an individual to work with a doctor in our community to help them with the patching protocol.
Yeah.
From my perspective, the individual would want to be taking an NAC supplement to elevate their glutathione. Whenever there's nerve damage in the body, glutathione is neuroprotective. So when we look at a disorder like Parkinson's disease is always associated with depleted levels of glutathione, because the glutathione is going to protect the nerves from degrading. It protects the myelin sheath. So it would not be unusual to find that when people had nerve damage, unless it was from some very, very severe trauma, if this was age-related, that they're going to have a glutathione deficiency. So one of the things they can do is bring back up their glutathione levels. The next thing that they're going to want to do is introduce things into the body that can regenerate and repair the nerves. I have quite a few patents on this subject, so I know a little bit about it. We did a study with pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, and we found, I know, Roy, you're very familiar with this technology, but in 30 out of 30 people that had diabetic neuropathy, we were able to regenerate their peripheral nerves. This is not supposed to be possible, but we did it. So this is referred to as neurogenesis and neurite outgrowth. So I would recommend that if someone had this condition, they seek a practitioner that is utilizing pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, or PEMF. It's different than the tech that I invented, but still it's going to help to facilitate healing. And then again, there's specific nutrients that will help to support regeneration of the nerves. I can't make a claim about it, and I'm not sure I want to mention what one of them is. But in any case, from my perspective, the condition is treatable.
What patches to put for hemifacial spasm? My left eye twitch often because of this spasm.
So again, we're not going to make any claims. We're treating any medical conditions. For muscle spasms, they are quite typically, I'm not going to say in this case, but muscle spasms and especially muscle cramps are associated with deficiencies of electrolytes like potassium and magnesium. So very often, let's say I know that you exercise, you play badminton and racquetball and things like that. People can develop and get pretty severe muscle cramping, and supplementing with potassium and magnesium, sometimes calcium, can make those go away entirely. So for muscle spasms, definitely I would look into potassium and magnesium supplement. I've already talked about magnesium supplements. On potassium, people shouldn't waste their time or money on a pill because it's only 99 milligrams. You should get a electrolyte drink where be taking 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams of potassium daily in a powder. That would be far, far more effective. In terms of patching, because we don't have a clinical study, I'd only have to speculate, but I would start with the carnosine and the Eon patches. And the reason is that you find carnosine and glutathione in the eye, and they're there to protect the eye. And as a side note, carnosine drops are actually used therapeutically in Europe to treat cataracts. So carnosine is definitely very, very powerful when it comes to the health of the eye, as is glutathione. But also, carnosine tends to have a sedating effect. So, my suspicion, and again, it would be a hypothesis and a suspicion, is that utilizing the carnosine patch might help to relax the muscle spasm. But I also might use Eon, because Eon creates balance in the between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, and is also going to be very, very good at reducing inflammation. So I think carnosine maybe at this point above the eye, and then the Eon patch on the temple might be a good place to start. But again, that's completely a guess on my part.
Okay. David, on carnosine product, it says that will improve stamina, 125%, right? But it's also sedating at the same time?
Well, yes. So you have to look at, okay, well, let's approach it from this perspective, right? If you're engaged in athletic competition, is it better to be stressed or relaxed?
Relaxed.
Yeah. Now, I actually met a fellow out in California that did psychological training with professional athletes, and he had a book about this, and this was many, many years ago. This was through Patrick Netter, actually, who you might remember.
The guru.
The gear guru. And so what this fellow would do is he had a way to train people so they would go into a state of relaxation and get into the zone. And this is where athletes perform best. So actually, an athlete is going to perform best when they're in a relaxed state. I'm a big Mike Tyson, the boxer fan, from the early days, phenomenal athlete, regardless of what you think of him as a person, you have to appreciate he's one of the best boxers of all time. And what was extraordinary about him and his trainer, Customato would hypnotize him before a match. And you can see the change in Mike Tyson after Customato died. He was no longer using hypnosis, but he had put him into the state of relaxation. So he was very, very focused. So carnosine has an affinity for going into the heart, the brain, and the muscle tissue. When it goes into the muscle, it acts as a mild anabolic for building muscle, and it will also buffer lactic acid. So that means it improves stamina by preventing the acid from shutting down aerobic activity in the cell. So in other words, you're preserving the ability of the cell to continue to make energy. In the brain, carnosine is going to improve cognition, and we have a study on that as well. So from an athletic point of view, carnosine builds muscle, it builds strength and stamina, and it keeps the body in a relaxed state.
Yeah, I always wear it when I play badminton. I love it.
Yeah, and it's also going to help with recovery. So, if you are reducing the buildup of acid, people can recover more quickly and exercise more intensely. So there's huge benefits to carnosine. It also preserves the telomeres. So in studies with mammals, it's been shown to increase lifespan 30 to 40%, and keeping those animals younger right up until the end of their lives. So carnosine is something everybody should be using.
So I use it about 3 to 4 times a week, like when I'm exercising with my elliptical or when I play badminton. I always use it because I felt the stamina is there. And now, with X49, I'm the oldest guy in the badminton court, but I'm the last one to get up from the court because I still want to play, and everybody already feel tired. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal stuff.
Yes. All right, David. I think we still have maybe 1 or 2 more here. What is it now? Oh, here we go. David, by wearing X39, X49 together, does it burn calorie and fat, same as energy enhancer?
The benefits are different. Energy enhancer is definitely burning fat, and we have the studies to prove that. What we've done with X39 and X49 is obviously it's a different focus, but for sure, X39 is improving the metabolism. We haven't done a direct comparison to energy enhancer, but my suspicion is that they would be equivalent in that regard. So if people wanted to use X39 and X49 instead of energy enhancer, they certainly could do it and get those benefits. I mean, in fact, with X49 in the study that we did, the very first study with it, we showed that people lost body fat very substantially without dieting. We don't make that claim because we don't want to have a problem with the FTC. And people, of course, were exercising. So that, that in and of itself is pretty interesting. The one advantage, I still use energy enhancer. The one advantage to it is that, not only is it improving the metabolism, but you are creating a flow of energy from one side of the body to the other through specific meridians, and that has anti-aging benefits. So that's why I still use it.
Yeah. I use 2 pair. I love it.
Unless I'm testing, like right now, I'm testing a new piece of technology that's I've been developing in our labs. That's an age reversal product. So I'm using one set of energy patches these days during the testing. But normally I'd be using 2 sets.
I remember when I first met you, we were talking that, Roy, we can live by 125. And then the more I meet you, we're talking about 200. And then the more I meet you, it feels like unless we got hit by a bus, I think we're going to live forever, David. I love it.
I think the statistics would be, if you look at the pure science, and you look at what people are saying, not just me, but of course, Ray Kurzweil, and he's probably one of the more prominent ones, Aubrey de Grey. They're basically saying people can live to be 1,000 years old or even longer. Some people are even going longer than that. So what you run into is, what is the statistical probability you could reach that age without being involved in an accident? And but that's why we're creating tech to help speed up the regenerative process, so that if people are in an accident, they can heal very quickly and recover. So those things will be available in the future. But it's from my perspective of what we're seeing, there's really no reason why people have to age. We're uncovering the mechanisms that will allow for age reversal.
Oh man, I'm excited with all these new products you're going to come about. But let me have you one more question, David.
Okay.
Instead of surgical repair, what product to use for treatment and management of nerve damage?
Yeah, we spent, of course, a little bit of time on this already. I would definitely be, depending on the type of nerve damage, right? If we're talking about the peripheral nerves, we've already done work with pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, showing that our technology could regenerate those damaged nerves. If we're talking about, a spinal cord injury, that's something completely different, because the scar tissue inhibits the regeneration of the nerves. So it really depends on what kind of nerves we're talking about. So let's say that we're talking about the peripheral nerves, just to keep it, very straightforward. If, and let's say this was caused by a diabetic condition, so I'm speculating here. First, a person would need to get their blood sugar levels under control. They would want to elevate their glutathione to protect the nerves from damage. They'd be using X39, they'd be using magnetic field therapy. And if it was a very severe condition, I would strongly recommend hyperbaric oxygen treatments, but only the method that was developed in Israel, because that method has been shown. The reason why you'd use hyperbaric oxygen is because it will cause stem cells to come out of the bone marrow and increase the number of circulating stem cells by about 4 to 6 times over baseline. So you can heal very traumatic injuries with that technique. Of course, an older a person gets, more difficult it becomes. But fortunately, with X39, we can reset those stem cells to a younger state.
Yes.
So I tend to think that X39 with hyperbaric oxygen would be pretty awesome.
Wow, that's cool. So I remember in one of your Zoominar, you said that if you use it for 6 weeks, your arteries nearby your heart will be 2 years younger, correctly? Am I correct?
So this was a study that was done by Dr. Thornton Streeter in India, and that was something that he found with X39. There's a lot of factors with arterial health. And again, we could spend an hour talking about all those things, but one of the things I recommend is buckwheat seed extract. There's a company called Standard Process, and they have a product called Cyruta, Cyruta. I'm not affiliated with the company or any of those supplement companies. But that product goes back to maybe the 1930s. And what it's known for is that it will clean out the arterial plaque in the arteries. There's other studies showing that vitamin D, when a person has a vitamin D deficiency, it will create hardening of the arteries. And that if you elevate your vitamin D levels, you can make your arteries more supple. Pomegranate extract is another one that will improve the endothelial lining and help support nitric oxide levels. And that's probably not surprising because pomegranate fruit has been known as a something that is good for the heart for centuries, right? Maybe even thousands of years. So, the bottom line is, cardiovascular disease, of course, is extraordinarily serious. And the great news is that there are so many things that are out there that people can do to improve the health of the heart. And in our universe, the carnosine patch, X39, X49, all are going to support the health of the heart.
Dr. Christine, a question. She says that when patients have copper toxicity in a mineral tissue analysis, do we continue to patch considering the GHK-Cu upregulation?
Well, actually, this is good because GHK is going to bind with the copper. Now, yeah, it's true that there is a percentage of the population that can't metabolize copper. And, this is why we don't make any medical claims, and we encourage people to speak with their doctor before using our products or any supplements to make sure that it's going to be okay for them. The way that I would look at it is that copper peptide is a naturally occurring peptide in the body. Levels of the peptide decline with age, and there's enormous benefits to copper peptide. So when we're looking at copper toxicity, we can look at that not only in and of itself, but relative to something like elevated levels of iron. So with men, it's very common, with women, because of their monthly cycle, they have a greater need for iron, but men tend to accumulate it. Well, and then when you have elevated levels of ferritin, this is going to create oxygen radicals, which is going to damage healthy tissue. So when you have copper and GHK, it can offset those high levels of iron. So actually having elevating your GHK will bind with the copper. So that's a good thing. Yeah, this is really, a question for a doctor and their patient. From my perspective, elevating GHK is a good thing because it will bind with the copper.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are many more questions that haven't been answered, but I think David's time is up. He's busy. When are you leaving to Florida?
Convention started for me this week, because we're in heavy planning sessions. You know, we've got sessions between, you know, starting Sunday all week, you know, working with the hotel, working with the audio video company. We want to make this a spectacular event. And as I've said, the members that come are going to see something they've never seen in the network marketing industry before. It's going to blow people away. I can guarantee, Roy, you're going to want to have a long conversation with me after we do the unveiling. But this is, we really want to use this as an opportunity to set the stage and show our community what's coming in the next couple of years, and what this is going to mean to our company and our opportunity. And we just want to keep growing and expanding what we're doing for our members. And we're definitely making a statement at this convention. I'm really looking forward to doing it. It's going to be so much fun. Sounds great. Same here. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Chief.